We are going to get started. This is being recorded. Um, Hi, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. And thank you for joining us for this crucial discussion on how to talk to children about traumatic events. My name is Jennie Berkovich, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. I am a general pediatrician and director of education for JOWMA. If you're here, you're probably familiar with JOWMA's mission to bring health education to communities everywhere. As parents, caregivers, and educators, we often face the challenging task of guiding children through distressing events. Whether it's personal loss, community violence, or global crises, children look to adults in their lives for reassurance, honesty, and emotional support. Unfortunately, the global Jewish community has been dealing with unimaginable loss and trauma over the last 17 months. But how do we approach these conversations in a way that fosters resilience rather than fear? How do we answer their questions when we may not have the answers ourselves? To help us navigate these challenges, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. First, we'll have Dr. Hava Gadassi, a developmental pediatrician and medical director of Goshen. Founded by leading pediatricians, Goshen is dedicated to advancing children's optimal health, development, and well being by transforming community pediatric care and addressing behavioral, developmental, and mental health issues. Their vision emphasizes better health equity for vulnerable communities, aiming to create a healthier, emotionally stronger, and more resilient society. We're also honored to have Ravit Shahar-Lahav and Yulie Khromchenko from Early Starters International. Ravit is an occupational therapist, Ph.D. in child development, and is the Academy Projects and Training Coordinator for Early Starters International. Yulie is an educator and facilitator of change processes and Vice President of Emergency and Development in Eastern Europe operations. Early Starters is an educational humanitarian organization focused on providing safe early learning spaces for young children in emergency situations and vulnerable communities worldwide. By creating secure environments tailored to children's developmental needs, Early Starters International helps alleviate trauma and ensure each child has a place to play, learn, and grow. Together, our panelists will share best practices for engaging children in age-appropriate conversations, recognizing early signs of distress, and providing the reassurance they need to feel safe and supported. We'll also leave some time for questions, so feel free to submit them in the chat box here in the Zoom. I also want to share a question that we got before the webinar, and I'll leave it to the panelists for if they want to address it as part of their discussion or afterwards. The question came from a middle school girls educator. The question is if how to respond or how to react when an adult overhears children discussing issues around the war or issues around maybe specific traumatic events that they've been exposed to. She says, when I overhear students talking about the war and what they should fear, should I engage in the topic? And if so, how? So I'll leave it up to the panelists how to address this and other relevant topics. So we're going to begin by hearing from our panelists. Dr. Gadassi, I'll pass it over to you. I'm happy to share my screen with your material.
So with your permission, try to share it. Let's see if it works. Okay, do you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So thank you very much, Jennie, and thank you for JOWMA for organizing this very important webinar today and invited me as part of the panelists as a representative of Goshen. So we are here because we truly appreciate your support for Israel in this difficult year and a half, and acknowledge the fact that you too, at the Jewish community, are very much involved, and your children are also exposed to content, pictures, news, and terms that no children should have ever been exposed to. But we are here to think together on how it will be best to talk about those topics with our kids. So thinking back, So thinking back of your 7th of October, what did you hear? What did you hear back then, and what did you as parents told your children? Many of you might have decided not to talk too much, maybe trying to hide the bad information, the fear, the picture, trying to silver line the reality for our kids. But obviously, this couldn't last too long. And if we see what had happened and what had changed in the last year and a half, it was very difficult to hide. Sorry, it's all moving. It was very difficult to hide the content from children, because difficult content is also whether an Iranian attack will occur or not. It was also about families of hostages and family experiencing immense heartbreak. It's the fact that through the public space there are pictures of hostages, and in every event, concert or play, the hostages are mentioned, as well as school ceremonies and also in the public area. So it was difficult to keep our kids away from this news. Whenever they are going, they could see those pictures. So news, rally, keeps moving, sorry. News, rally, exhibition, performance, posters, etc. are everywhere. And we can't assume anymore that our kids are not exposed, or that we can really conceal the reality from them to keep them safe. Sorry. It keeps moving. So new words also. In the beginning of the war, we realized that a lot of new words had entered our lexicon and our kids were exposed to. And in the beginning of the war, we have launched a dictionary for all those terrible words and how to explain them to children. What is terrorist, penetration, hostages, missiles, rockets, funerals, body. But new words keep emerging all the time. What are drones, Iranian, Houthis? It's not no longer just words, it's the fact that it's really the reality of our life. Sorry. So if we also talk about our teenagers that are in social media, the social media feed also had changed. And even if our teenagers don't choose to consume difficult content, it still reached them through the people they follow, and parents have less control over it. So they were all exposed to those words and those pictures. The problem is that we also, and our kids also, had become a bit more desensitized. Things that once seemed unimaginable have now become routine, and we have grown more exhausted of those content, not even feeling what it means for children to be exposed to again and again to those content. Sorry, what am I doing? Instead of moving forward, sorry. So the fact is that our ability to prevent children from being exposed to difficult content is very limited. We're not talking about how to prevent exposure to content, but rather how to cope with it and mediate it for kids. So we will give a short guideline to how to talk to kids about those difficult content. And it can be, now we're going to talk about the war, but actually it's all surrounding kids. It can be also familial losses and other traumatic events that kids are going through. I really apologize for the fact that the slides are always moving. So first of all, we need to tell kids the truth, even if it's just partial truth. The basic trust between us as parents and our kids is that we tell them the truth and we don't lie. We can't say nothing had happened because they hear it from others. They feel our anxieties, they feel our sadness and care, and they just know it. But the truth also has its limits, and we don't necessarily have to say all the truth. We need to keep it simple and to keep it safe for our kids. And it's also okay to admit that we don't always know everything. Kids will appreciate the fact that we sometimes will say, I don't know what will happen in the future. I can't always promise what will happen, but I can say and give them some hope that things will be better. Offer children hope during and at the end of the conversation, saying that things are going to be better, and saying that even if bad things happen, we're now in a safe place, and we now have soldiers that are now keeping us and are taking care of us. Give them hope that even if there are missiles, for example, we have sheltered room, we have sheltered spaces, we have the rocket dome, etc. So we are safe and we know what to do to keep us safe again. Third, adjust the content to the child age and character. Okay, it's not the same for teenagers and for children at the age of 3, but even children at the age of 3 and at the age of 2 needs to hear a bit. So when speaking, use words that they can that the kids are capable of understanding. Maintain eye contact and also use some comforting touch. This will show them empathy and the fact that we see them and we know them and we feel them. The conversation should be as calm as possible. So try to find out what is the right time to have this conversation. If you're too anxious as a parent, you're too nervous at the time, you're too preoccupied with other things, that's probably not the best time to do this. Try to regulate your emotion as a parent, as an adult, before starting the conversation with children. Be the source of information for your kids to know what is happening. Don't count on the fact that they will hear it from others. They will hear it from others, but it will be better for them to hear them from you, because you will be able to moderate what they are hearing, to offer them comfort, and to calm their anxiety when it comes. Help kids to find the words they need and help them explain their emotion. Ask them how do they feel about what they've heard. And with younger children, you can also do the mentalization and offer them the wording of the emotions they feel. You can say things like, "This make me sad, and I see you're sad too." This will teach them how to use language for their emotion and to be able to communicate what they are feeling at the moment. Let your kid know that they can always come to you with questions and you will always tell them the truth. Be there for them whenever they need. Give an option to opt out. If you take your children to hostage exhibit or to a rally or to anything else, give them the option to leave when they feel they are overwhelmed and it's emotionally too difficult for them. Offer them confidence, tell that it's fine if they can't stay in a school ceremony that talk about difficult things. If they're watching even a short movie, give them the option to opt out. And if it's too difficult for them, it's as it is for a lot of children, and they experience some anxiety, I would like to talk a little bit about how anxiety looks in children. So anxiety in children is a very common issue, even before the war. It is one of the most prevalent phenomena among children. And since the war, children have been experiencing more anxiety. Anxiety can be expressed in several ways. First of all, physical signs. Maybe with a high heart rate, with sweating, with rapid breathing. It can also include recurring headaches or recurring stomach aches, etc. It can also be present as mental symptoms, repeating questions about what is going to happen, concentration difficulties, memory problem. Children who are very anxious are constantly thinking about what might happen if bad things occur, and they become easily distracted. And obviously emotional signs. We can see children and very young children also being with excessive crying, with dependency, sleep difficulties, separation issues, avoidance, and also some regression in their developmental milestones. So how can we cope with anxiety? Sorry, I think you're seeing part of the screen you shouldn't, right? Are you seeing only my slide or you're seeing also?
There's like an edit panel on the side.
I don't know how to make it go away. Let's see. Yes, it went away, right?
Yes.
It's not there anymore?
Correct.
Good. Thank you. So how to cope with anxiety? Actually, it's a full topic for another webinar, but we'll say a few points. First of all, mentalization, talking about feelings. You are worried and this makes you feel bad. So sometimes when our mind is busy with bad thoughts, it can make our head ache or stomach ache. So making the connection between what the children is feeling and what he's experiencing to a word of what is it, of the name of the emotion and the feeling. Relaxation. You can find on the web and YouTube short explanation and short films on relaxation routine. You can try on them when your child is calm and then use them when he's distressed. Breathing techniques, working with the body, and more. Keep routine. Keep your regular routines, family routines, as Shabbos meal, play dates with kids, school and after school activities. Don't give up on all those. When should you talk to a professional? If your child's function is dramatically impaired, he's not going to school, he's very avoidant, he's not sleeping at all, or if things are not getting better and are even worsening, this is time to consult with a professional. It can be your pediatrician, can be the school counselor, the teacher, and they will offer you some help. Another very important thing is you as a parent. Last but not least, rather the most important thing is to think about you as parents. Take care of yourself as parents, because you are the one who will moderate your child's emotion. So you have to keep it calm. How can you do it? First, self-compassion. Be self-compassionate to yourself. You're doing your best, even if it's not what exactly you wanted to do or you wanted to be. Choose your battles. It's fine if they were too long on Netflix during those days. Find where you can fill up your cup and recognize what drains you, so you'll be able to still keep calm and keep your abilities. Don't make any comparison. What are your sorry, I have a distraction with a kid here. Don't make any comparison on what your friends are doing or what other family members are doing. You'll always feel that the other are doing it even better. Relationship is the secret. Keep them around you. Keep good people that are taking care of you and are caring for you, so you'll be able to continue on. And that's fine to lower your standards sometimes when you feel that you are feeling not well as a parent. Thank you very much for your attention, and praying for better days for all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Gadassi. Any thoughts on when or what, if anything, should trigger a parent or caregiver that a mental health professional should be part of the conversation?
Sorry, so when should a mental health professional should be around?
Yeah.
I think that first of all, we don't always have to jump to a mental health professional, and start with the one that are in the natural surrounding of the family. So school counselor, teachers, pediatrician. Sometimes it's enough giving some recommendation on relaxation techniques and on distraction, and strengthening the family links between the parents and the child will give the child some comfort. And as I said, if you're seeing that the impairment in the function of the kids are really becoming are becoming very obvious. Okay, so a lot of avoidance, not wanting to go to friends, stopping to go to after school activities, or not wanting to get up in the morning, or recurrent difficulties, headaches, etc., that are becoming very that are affecting the daily function. Well, this is time to get to a professional and see what can be done. And remembering that a lot of the work that is done with children is not by fixing the children. It's a lot about relationship, and a lot about moderating the parents' ability to react to what children are feeling. And this will be the main work of the professionals in mental health.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to pass it over to Yulie and Ravit for their section of the presentation. Ladies, let me know if you'd like me to share on your behalf.
Thank you, Jennie. I'll share myself.
Great.
Just a second for the technical issues. So, hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. As Jennie said, my name is Yulie Khromchenko. I'm the VP of Emergency and development of an organization named Early Starters that deals with early age children in crisis situation and vulnerable communities. And what we will try to bring, me and Ravit, my colleague, is some practical experience that we had with children in crisis situations, mainly early age children, which means pre-verbal, and how we try to work with it. I'll describe a situation which is different from what you have at home as parents with hopefully stable houses. We meet the children in the field, sometimes in very vulnerable situations. And yet some of our experience, I think, will be relevant for you on how to create the atmosphere of safety and security for children, even in situations where the world is not, doesn't feel like a secure and safe place to live in. So just a little about what we do. We create safe spaces. In a minute, I will explain what they are. We engage in advocacy and policy making. We train psychologists and educators on trauma-informed education, which means we give different people the basic understanding of what trauma is, what prolonged stress is, and how does it affect our life and what we can do with it. As different people learn first aid, first medical aid, it's kind of a first psychological aid. And we also engage in research. So the picture you see here is from one of our safe emergency spaces in Eilat that was founded after the 7th of October for people coming evacuated from the south of Israel, from the Gaza Strip, both from cities like Sderot and kibbutzim. And what we try to do there is what we try to do in every space of ours, whether it is in Israel after the 7th of October, or in Ukraine, or in New York. We try to create a surrounding, an atmosphere, and an activity that makes the kid feel safe despite of what's happening outside and despite of his personal biographical experience of instability, whether he was experiencing a terrorist attack or a missile attack, or he's a refugee or an internally displaced person with no secure home. And what we learned from that experience is that many times it doesn't need much to make a child feel secure, but it has to be, like the environment has to be, the activity has to be very tailored to his needs and wishes. And that's something that a meaningful grown-up can do, to see how the activity, the conversation, the atmosphere can be tailored to the kid and to what he likes and dislikes. And how that creates an atmosphere in which like a more controversial or complex topics can be brought. We do it, as I said before, in 3 big world crises, in Israel, in Ukraine, and in New York. And just to make you, to give you a feel of things, I wanted to bring this picture from a safe space we have in Sumy. Sumy is a city in Ukraine, on the border of Ukraine. Children and grown-ups live there for 3 years already in an atmosphere of unsafety. But as you see the kids here, they're in the shelter. There is no electricity outside because the electricity is cut quite often every day. But if you can see from the faces of the kids that the kids are happy because they're engaged in a play. They're playing with with small lights. They're doing for silhouettes on the ceiling of the of the shelter, and that and the way that the grown-ups in the space engage them make them feel safe and secure. So it's a very important thing to remember about children, about their ability to live in the here and now, and to be able to be engaged in very specific experiences, sometimes merging reality and fantasy, is a very important resource that children have, that we as grown-ups suddenly sometimes forget that we have. And that's a very important thing to dig into. I would say that as part of the knowledge we bring to professionals, we many times talk about different kinds of coping with the stress that grown-ups have. And there is like a classic division between problem-focused coping and emotional focused coping. That basically divides between things that we can control and things that we cannot really control. So when we talk about problem-focused coping, it's also a type, of a way that certain people use more than others. Then we solve problems. We define the problem, we suggest solutions, we choose what's the best solution, we try it, and then we evaluate. And when we talk about emotion-focused coping, we talk about ways, Hava mentioned it, to distract ourselves, to meditate, to breathe, to relax, to do some kind of body work, or to give space for emotional expression. And what we're seeing in many of our spaces is something that in a way combines those both ways of coping. It's what we call imagination or play focused coping. Children play their scenarios. Like the most difficult scenarios there are, children just give themselves the opportunity, if we give them as grown-up the opportunity, to play it. What is called social dramatic play. The children you see here, for example, are from one of our spaces in Lviv, Ukraine. They're displaced children. They came from the east of Ukraine, and a lot of the 2 first weeks, they kept playing around the house and in the house, in hiding from the bad guys. And a very similar play was done by children from one of the kibbutzes in the Gaza sector after the 7th of October in the space we had in the Dead Sea. They kept playing again and again in a terrorist attack that comes to their house, and the bad guys come to their house and they try to kidnap them, and they resist. And it was going over and over. And what we did as grown-ups is that we were there with them, and we were looking and observing it all the time, but we didn't interfere. And what we saw is that first the game evolved, like the scenarios changed, and during them repeating their scenarios through play, eventually it stopped being interesting for them. They solved the problem. And then they went to engage in a different thing, and the same house was a restaurant or a cafe or something else from normal life. So what that taught and still teaches us, and we implement it a lot in our work, is to let children play the things that are hard for them, that are complex for them, because for them it's a way to solve a problem and deal with their emotions around it accordingly. Ravit,
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yulie. So we'll talk a little bit about how and why play is such a powerful therapeutic tool for children. And play, I can say play helps children always, but specifically in times of war or conflict. It provides sense of normalcy, emotional expression and healing in sometimes in environment where fears and instability dominate. And children and play can help children in different ways in here some of the ways. So as Yulie said, emotional plays helps children to process their emotional and express their emotional. Especially young children when they lack the verbal ability to express their complex emotions like fear, like grief, like anxiety, and plays give them the nonverbal outlet to communicate and to process their feelings. And another way is restoring a sense of safety and control, like in the example that Yulie gave about the children that play in this house, in the bad guys and how to fight the bad guys. So these children felt safer and felt that they have control on the situation. So in these times of trauma and the war, children it's often strip the children the control of their life, and through this kind of play they can regain a sense of agency, and they can make the decision, they can rule the situation, they can create their own narratives, and these kinds of imaginative play all allow them to experiment this problem and to solve this problem on the way that they feel better. They feel it's better for them, or it's suit for them. Another way that plays help children, it's help them being in the here and now, as Yulie said before. And when they engage in play and they become fully immersed in their activities and they're focusing on what they are doing, and rather than focusing the surrounding and the worries on the environment, it's a kind of it can be a kind of state of presence, like a mindfulness presence. And play also reduce stress and anxiety by triggers the release of endorphins and help to reduce the stress and promote emotional regulation. Especially all kinds of plays, but especially physical active plays, and that helps to relieve tension in the body. And the social connections that I think Yulie also reminds that place fosters connections with the surroundings, their peers, the caregivers, and family members, like parents, like siblings, and it counteracting isolation and loneliness that might be part of these times, and part of the stress and crisis. And especially in cooperative games that helps children to rebuild trust, to learn networking, teamwork, and to practice conflict resolution skills.
May I add something here, Ravit? I think, and we saw it, in certain situations, the first reaction of parents in crisis is to take their children home, like not to let them play outside because it's complicated, because like the instinct, the motherly instinct of keeping the kids near you. It was very evident for us when we opened the space in Majd al-Shams, in the Druze village in the north of Israel, after the attack killed 12 kids playing football. So the first thing the children told us when they entered the space is, wow, now we can play again, because for 2 weeks they weren't playing at all. And for a child, they heard a lot, and they knew some of the kids, but the fact that their routine, their childish routine, stopped, and that they couldn't play anymore, that was devastating. So as far as we can as parents to engage with our children if we can, or let them engage with other children in playing and in childhood routine, that's a very reinforcing thing to do.
Thank you, Yulie. Okay, so in times of war and crisis, sometimes it might disrupt educational and typical development milestones. Children might stay at home and not go to school or to kindergarten, and play can keep children to engage in learning, creativity, and exploration. And different kind of games might enhance also different skills like as we said, problem solving, like memory or language development, especially in young children. And finally, I think providing hope and joy. So even in times of stress and trauma and war, play remind children that it can be, we can have fun. Like Yulie said, in the case of the children in Major Shams, that they said, we want to have fun, we can play again. So we can have fun and joy, and it's still possible. It nurtures hope and reinforces resilience, and it reminds children and their parents that despite the hardship, they can also they can still experience happiness and connections. So we talked about the children and young or older children, but what about us, the adults? So I think all we said is relevant for us, the adults, and maybe we can finish with the words of George Bernard Shaw that said, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing."
And just to
Thank
add,
you.
I think that our job in the crisis management area with children show that how much the fact that we engage in work with kids also protects us from the craziness of the outer world. There is something very focusing, very grounding, very deep happening when we interact with our children, even in the craziest crisis situation, that also keeps us stronger and more open-hearted. So yeah, on this optimistic note, we will finish our part.
Thank you so much. I want to ask a question about the practicality of children using play as a way to cope with situations around them. Are there any maybe red flags or limitations or things that might clue us in that there might be more of a pathology or maybe more like anxiety, the way that Dr. Gadassi was describing, versus normal age-appropriate play as a way to cope with a traumatic situation? For example, maybe children who are overtly graphic with the use of like pretend guns or like pretend violence. Like, are there any limitations or things that might clue us in that there actually might be something pathologic going on?
Ravit, you would
I
like
think I'll say just one thing. And I think that if the game is repetitive and they keep on playing again and again and again the same scene without evolving to other areas, now not moving forwards to other things, this is a red flag. Okay, this is something to look on.
But I think, Hava, it's really contextual. Like for some kids, we see it repetitive, like 2 times, 3 times. And in certain situations where like all kids have shared traumatic reality of being coming from Gaza Strip and having a very strong emotional thing, it might take more. I think what our eye can see as parents, as adults, is sometimes it evolves a little, like not much. I agree that when we see, for example, that the kid cannot stop, really cannot stop, that's a red flag. That means that we should involve a therapist. But sometimes it takes longer time and there are smaller changes. And then we know that it's okay and that at a certain point, the child will outplay the scenario and will move to something else.
And I think
parents also need to.
No, yes, Hava.
I think parents also need. It's sometimes very confronting to see your kid playing. So kids were playing lying down because there are alarms. They were playing hiding. They were playing funerals. So putting small pieces with flags and saying, this is now a funeral of soldiers. And it's very overwhelming for parents sometimes to see, but that's the way the kids are coping with their reality. Sorry, Ravit, I stopped you.
No, I agree, and maybe I'll add one more thing that I think we should watch and pay attention to the well-being of the child. If he looks like in stress, also after he plays, and he doesn't have a feeling of release, so we can it can be a red flag, and then maybe it's time to ask for a professional help or
Guidance.
guidance.
And we actually have a comment in the chat emphasizing that exactly, that when in doubt, call a professional and to ask. This is coming from a psychologist who says that she would rather have a quick question for something that is not serious than have a parent miss something that is serious. So I think that's a good theme overarching this whole conversation, right? Is that when there is a concern or where something seems off, rather than just wait for it to see if it'll go away by itself, it's never wrong always to reach out to your pediatrician, and certainly ask for appropriate guidance from a mental health professional. I want to circle back to the question that we got before the webinar, regarding how to respond to, let's say, older kids, right, middle school or maybe high school kids who are talking amongst themselves either about the war or maybe their fears around a war or other traumatic events. Should adults intervene in those conversations?
Well, I think this is a port of entrance, I think, to a conversation with kids. So instead of organizing it very in an artificial way, this is a very good option when a child is starting the conversation, and even if it's between kids, to get in to engage. And as we said, with all those rules, okay, getting it with eye contact and asking them what do they feel about what they've heard. So if they're talking about the war, talking about people that died, etc., asking them what it makes you feel. Okay, so giving them the option of being involved emotionally, and giving them the ability to say, you're right, well, this, I also feel like that. A lot of children feel like you. Okay, and but then giving them hope, as we said, thinking on not leaving them with the hard feeling, but saying, yes, this is the way you're feeling now, and a lot of children are feeling the same way. What can we do to make things better for us? Okay, we're now in a safe place. What can you do? Giving the children an option to be more active, so taking care of others. Do you want to write some letters to soldiers in Israel? Do you want to pack on some mishlochei manot for families? Keep them busy in positive activity. Will give them also a lot of resilience. I can do something. It's not only about feeling bad, but there's something I can do to make things feel a bit better.
I think Hava summed it up very well. I can add from our experience, usually, again, our experience is with more early age kids, but as we engaged with teenagers, it sometimes helps when the conversation is happening through doing something. Yeah, like packing a mishlochei manot is an option, or creative work or something, even knitting. Yeah, something repetitive and bodily active. Yeah, it's sometimes easier to open up longer conversation and deeper conversation and getting in depth with their feelings, because otherwise sometimes they're kind of afraid of engaging in a conversation with a grown-up. But when they're loose in doing something, it's easier. Cooking also good.
I think grown-ups are more exposed naturally to videos or like videos of horrors, and I think the most very important thing to help them to feel that it's okay. It's not to hide that they watch it, and to give a legitimate to talk about what they saw, and even if they saw things that are very hard, and to have to give them the opportunity to talk about what they saw and what they heard, like Hava mentioned before, that it's okay. You don't have to hide that you saw things that are very hard or very, and we can talk about it, and we can be together with it, and you don't have to be alone with your feelings, with the things that you feel or that you experience.
Very good. I want to give any of the participants, any of the attendees, and one last opportunity to ask a question of any of the panelists. You can type it in the chat. Alternatively, if you think of a question later, you can email your questions to info@jowma.org, and I'll be happy to pass the questions on to the panelists. If there are no questions, I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar today, and I want to thank each of the panelists for their time and expertise discussing this very important topic. The recording for this webinar will be shared shortly, probably later this week. So I invite all the attendees to share this with your networks. Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks a lot.
you.
Jennie, thank you very
Have a
much.
good day.
Have a
Thank you.
good night. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.